So, picture this. It's 1995, and this grainy black and white film just appears. And it promises to answer one of the biggest questions we've ever asked. It was explosive, it was controversial, and for millions of people, it was the proof they'd been waiting for. The big question it dropped on the world: are we alone?
Now, where did this thing come from? Well, from a London-based music producer, of all people, a guy named Ray Santilli. He claimed he got his hands on it from a retired U.S. military cameraman who supposedly filmed it way back in 1947. And what was on it? The autopsy of a non-human being, the supposed smoking gun from the legendary Roswell crash.
And you know what? The world went absolutely nuts for it. When this footage aired, it wasn't just another TV show. It was a global event. We're talking 30 million people watching. And the debate just exploded. Instantly. Was this it? Was this the final proof we'd all been searching for? Or was this the most elaborate hoax ever put on television?
Now, to really get a grip on why this film hit so hard, we've got to rewind. Way back. We need to go back to where this whole story supposedly kicked off, a dusty patch of desert in New Mexico almost 50 years earlier. Okay, look at this timeline, because this is where things get weird fast. On the morning of July 8th, the military's official statement is, "We have a flying disc." But by that evening, nope, just kidding, it was a weather balloon. This sudden 180-degree turn, all in the span of just a few hours, well, that's the little crack where decades of suspicion started to grow. So the government slams the book shut, right? Case closed. But not for the folks who lived there. The whispers never stopped. Rumors of a massive cover-up, of bizarre debris that was anything but normal, and even hushed stories about small, not quite human bodies being pulled from the wreckage. This simmering mystery was the perfect kindling for a firestorm, just waiting for a match.
All right, fast forward to 1995. Ray Santilli steps onto the world stage. And he's claiming he has the proof that's been missing all these years, handed to him by this mysterious retired military cameraman who supposedly sat on this bombshell secret for nearly half a century. The footage itself is just chillingly methodical, clinical, and totally bizarre. They make an incision, but the tissue is dry, there's no blood. They start removing these large organs that nobody can identify. But then comes the moment that made everyone's blood run cold. A tiny, subtle movement. A twitch in the creature's hand, almost like a final reflex.
So what did this thing look like? Well, it was this really smart mix of what you'd expect and something else. The huge head, the dark eyes, that's pretty much the classic alien. But then you get these specific odd details, like 6 fingers on each hand, that added this layer of biological weirdness that made it feel disturbingly real.
But right when the world is in the middle of this massive debate, is it real or is it fake, the whole narrative gets flipped on its head. A key player, an insider, comes out of the woodwork. But he wasn't there to back up the story. He was there to burn it to the ground.
Okay, so here's the showdown. In one corner, you've got Ray Santilli selling this incredible story of a hidden historical record. And in the other corner, you have Spyros Malaris, a filmmaker who steps up and confesses, "Yeah, that was me. We faked the whole thing with latex and sheep brains in a London apartment." You couldn't have two more opposite stories, so who's telling the truth? But hold on, because this is where Malaris' confession takes a really bizarre left turn. He claims that even though their film was a total fake, the alien itself wasn't just a random design. He says they based it on a real description they got from a source inside the military. So, a fake film based on a supposedly real thing, how does that even work? Now, with his back against the wall, Santilli flips his own script. He starts calling the film a reconstruction. The new story is that the original 1947 film had basically crumbled to dust, so they had to reshoot it. And this just muddies the waters even more. So are we watching a hoax, or are we watching a faithful copy of something that actually existed? You'd think that would be the end of it, right? A couple of filmmakers arguing over a fake alien in London. Story over. But no, because that's when a very serious player stepped onto the field. I mean, think about it. The FBI gets involved. Why on earth would the Federal Bureau of Investigation be dedicating time and resources to look into a special effects project from London? It just doesn't add up. And this right here is huge. We now have declassified FBI documents, and in their internal memos, they don't call it a hoax. They don't dismiss it. They label the footage sensitive material. Now, in the world of intelligence and law enforcement, words are chosen very, very carefully.
And that phrase opens up a whole new can of worms.
Exactly. Sensitive how? If it's just a fraud, maybe it's sensitive to the TV network that got duped. But if it contains even a tiny kernel of truth, it could be sensitive to something much bigger, like national security. The silence around that one word is deafening.
So what we're left with is this mess of loose ends, these questions that just hang in the air and keep this thing from ever being a closed case. Who was this cameraman? Did he even exist? Where is this so-called original film? And the biggest one of all, why does the FBI still have a file on a supposed hoax?
So where does that leave us? Honestly, stuck in this total labyrinth of truth and lies. We've got two very powerful stories, and frankly, both of them have some pretty big holes. It really boils down to this: a total standoff. The hoax theory is compelling, you've got a guy on camera confessing to it, but the conspiracy theory just won't die, because it's propped up by the whole weird history of Roswell and, crucially, that stubborn, unexplained file sitting at the FBI.
And that brings us back to the one question that just keeps poking holes in the "it's all a fake" story. If this was just some guys in an apartment having a laugh, why is there continued classified government interest years after everybody supposedly knew the truth?
I mean, think about it. The easiest thing in the world would be for them to just drop the files and say, "See? Hoax. Move on." That would end the debate for good. Their refusal to do that, their continued silence, is what many people see as the biggest piece of evidence that there's something more to the story. So in the end, everything, and I mean everything, that could prove this one way or the other has just vanished. The cameraman, the original film reels, the body itself, whether it was latex or not, it's all gone. All we have left are those grainy black and white images that started this whole thing. So after all of that, the back and forth, the confessions, the strange government files, and the giant holes in every version of this story, it really all comes down to you. You're the jury now. Was it one of the most brilliant hoaxes ever pulled off, or was it a reconstruction of a moment in history we were never, ever supposed to see? The verdict is yours.